Okay, everybody, welcome to an episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. To have a really fun review for you guys from the brand Citizen. A little about them. They were founded back in 1918 by both Japanese and Swiss investors, eventually settling on the name brand of Citizen Watch Company around 1930, with Citizen Group owning Miyota, Belova, Arnold & Son, Frederick Constant, Alpina, and Campagnola, just to name a few. Citizen brand is still offering some very cool in-house models, many of which are still assembled in Japan. They are definitely best known for their affordable quartz offerings in terms of kind of mall watches and whatnot. But they actually did help Seiko disrupt the Swiss watch industry during the quartz crisis of the 1970s. Now, in terms of type of watch, this is an everyday watch. So you get some key characteristics and design. When you're looking for something you can wear every day, of course, you're going to find that versatile blend of both sporty and dressy attributes. This is from their Citizen collection, and it is their NJ0151-88M, or it would be -53M, depending on the region that you're in. And essentially, it's just an entry-level, everyday integrated steel sports watch. And it, does MSRP for about $475, but you can get this, like I did, from SakuraWatches.com. And currently, looking at the exchange rates at the time of filming this, it's for about $290. So that's pretty awesome. You can also use the code ABROS3P25 for a 3% discount on any Casio, Seiko, or Citizen watch. I'll leave that link down in the description. Let me know if there's any issues with that, because it did start in 2025. Hopefully it's still good in 2026. If it needs to change, we'll definitely update it, but definitely do check the links down below. Big shout out to Sakura for kindly providing this sample for review. So with all that said, let's go ahead and zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, let's take a look here. And of course, quite handsome, quite versatile. I like that it is not as a heavy-handed approach as some other integrated steel models that are just, trying to be a Royal Oak, trying to be a Patek Nautilus, right? Trying to be an Overseas, right, from Vacheron. Here, in this case, honestly, when we look at the case and the bracelet and just the overall aesthetic, it looks more actually like a Seiko 5 SNXS line watch, but just with an integrated bracelet style. So I think that's interesting. I love that it has an aesthetic that does fit certain characteristics that are very popular and on trend, but it doesn't look like a trendy watch. It doesn't look like something that is going to age badly, or it's just something you want to get to satiate that need and scratch that itch for an integrated steel bracelet, because they're just all the rage right now. It does have some classic lines and design that I do think give it some staying power. Now, in terms of the dimensions, 40 millimeters in diameter, 11.8 millimeters thick, and 44.7 millimeters lug to lug, which is quite wearable. Stainless steel here with multiple finishes. You can see satin brushing as well as high polished. Now, moving on to the crystal, it's going to be a sapphire that is flat with, of course, that nice magnifying lens there as well. And it does have an inner anti-reflective coating. It does have a push-pull crown at the 4 o'clock, as you guys can see. And on the back side, you can see this gilded movement there. Very nice. This automatic Citizen Miyota 8210 movement, which does have hacking. I know typically when you see 8000 series movements, at least for me, it does give me a little bit of pause, because I am not a fan typically of the 8200 or any 8000 series movements, because they used to not have hacking. Thankfully, Citizen have added the hacking. So very, very cool. So you do have a hacking seconds hand, and of course they always did hand wind. Now, it does also have a 42-hour power reserve, which, isn't extended by any means. That's a very standard power reserve at just under 2 days. It does beat at 3 hertz or 21,600 vibrations per hour in terms of the beat rate. You already saw that the case back was display, so very cool. And then we get into kind of the star of the show, guys, which is going to be this dial, this Tiffany blue sunray dial, definitely within that teal or robin's egg blue, spectrum there of collectability and hotness. Again, it fits into even more categories, right? Even especially, I'd say, with this dial, you're also getting something that taps into a bit of that hype. But at the same time, it's not a direct homage. It has its own character. So very cool, and big ups to Citizen. I like when micro brands do this, and I might even like it more when mainstream brands do it, because it just shows that there's a certain level of thought and restraint that they're using, instead of just going, flat out for, hey, this looks like an alternative to that. I think this looks like a great alternative to the Tissot PRX, a watch that I own and that I enjoy very much. But at the same time, it looks nothing like a PRX. It just happens to have an integrated bracelet, and that's about where the, some of the dial furniture, because of how sedate it is, and handset, I guess could be similar. Maybe let me know down in the comments below if you want to see those two go head to head. But again, I think it fits within that same similar category, but it is, of course, much cheaper. And then I think aesthetically, it's giving you something that is less retro overall in design. Now, you have a polished handset. Then also you do have Citizen's proprietary Lume that does glow green in this case. Now, the water resistance on here is only 5 bar or 50 meters, but that's kind of all you need for this type of watch. And in terms of the lug width there, it's an integrated lug, so it doesn't really matter. But it does have a solid 3-link president style bracelet with split pin construction, tapering from this 22 millimeter flare here at the widest point all the way down to about 18 millimeters or 17.9 per my calipers. You do have this 19.5 millimeter push button stamped clasp here with 3 positions of manual micro adjustment. I have it in the middle setting, and yeah, I think this thing is quite nice. But with all that said, let's go ahead, get it on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay, as you guys can see on my 7.5 inch wrist, or 19 centimeters in circumference, it's a nice full-sized piece. It's definitely not mid-sized. That 40 millimeters wears like a nice watch. I would say not oversized. They do offer these in a 37 millimeter, but I do worry that it would wear too small for me, and I think this 40 millimeter would probably be the better choice out of the two. But as you guys can see, it sits nicely, quite organic, well sculpted. It wraps around the wrist very well, especially with those really short lug to lug measurements. But of course, if I get my wrist a bit too close to the camera lens, you're going to get a fair amount of perspective distortion. All of a sudden the watch looks way bigger because the sides of my wrist are falling away and looking smaller. Now, what I'll do is keep my wrist nice and low here, and as you can see, all of a sudden looks a lot more centered. So I'll just tighten up the frame so that you guys can get still a detailed look, but just add a bit of a true aspect ratio as to how this may lay on your own wrist. And as you can see, guys, I think this looks absolutely fantastic. Check that out. Wow, under 300 bucks from Sakura right now. I think this is one heck of a deal. You guys can see the contouring is quite nice. Nothing crazy, nothing luxurious there. I know that's something where maybe the PRX has a bit of an advantage, because I do think they went out of their way to make the watch appear more expensive. Now, there are definitely some expensive cues in terms of the aesthetic here, right? If you are thinking Datejust / Oyster Perpetual, that's not a cheap watch. So there are going to be some visual cues that make this feel a bit more expensive. But I will say, in terms of the fit and finish, it's definitely more of an everyday wear watch, which I do appreciate. So with that said, we'll go ahead and get this off the wrist, set it for some Lume shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. All right, very nice, quite handsome, as you guys can see. Great legibility, great orientation, and although you do have the double indices at the 12 and the 6. Of course, thanks to that date window at the 3 o'clock, you're going to get that shortened indice, so you'll be good to go. Now, one of the things, of course, I like to always work in is going to be a bit of a low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it's nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. As you guys can see here, again, very cool and versatile aesthetics here, whether it be the case with that integrated president style bracelet, or this beautiful dial, clean, classic, but again, still quite contemporary, without, feeling overly modern. It just hits a real sweet spot in my opinion. And you can see the dial does play quite nicely with the light, and that magnifier does add an extra step of visual interest. But with that said, let's actually get the lights back on and get into some closing thoughts here. All right, on the wrist, this wears very similar to the Tissot PRX Automatic, and do I think that's on purpose? Maybe. Now, in terms of model variants, though, definitely do check the site links for current options and availability. I'll leave that down in the description. And then in terms of comparable models, this definitely falls within the very popular Genta-inspired sports watch space, while also injecting a touch of Rolex flair a la the Seiko 5 SNXS. And I recently picked up one of the new modern Seiko 5 SNXS kind of reissue slash reimaginings, and I enjoy that one a lot. It is slightly small, but it does look very nice. So for me, guys, bottom line, at right under $300, while not necessarily class leading, you're still getting solid bang per buck here, in a very wearable and super versatile package. So the wear profile, I think, is good. But the versatility, I think, is great. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. Of course, how does you think this might compare to a Tissot PRX? That's something you'd be interested to see side by side. And then even the newcomer, the first automatic watch from Casio, which I recently reviewed, is also an integrated steel sports watch. So maybe we compare that, throw that in the mix as well. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please like, and if you're already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.